7:30, and we have all of our council present. I note that Francisco already is with us online. Good morning, Frankie. Good to see you. So our entire council is here. The rest are present in the council chambers in the downstairs study session room. The first item on our agenda today is to hear a presentation, discuss, and provide direction on a couple of our great city departments. We're starting with economic development. Jay and Bill, good to have you with us. Congratulations on a great year.
Thank you, Mayor. Good morning, Council. It's great to be back in front of you and live in person here this morning. So good feeling. It has been a good year, and Jay and I are just going to take a few moments to talk about what's ahead and at the end sort of review some of our performances here to date. So first slide is simply a little bit about the mission. I'm not going to get into it specifically, and our lines of service. And certainly the headline grabber is the business attraction, but I don't want to minimize the business retention expansion because we've seen quite a bit of that in this past year as well. And another key item in those lines of service, we're spending more and more time on workforce. And I think that's key because we have a tour with site selectors here this morning, and a lot of times, not this morning, but a lot of times they're bringing their HR directors with the companies. And that's somewhat of a change over the years, and that just gives an indication of how important workforce and the amount of workforce quality that we have. Next up on the screen is our summary of our budget. Includes general fund and economic investment fund, which covers economic investment projects like AZ Labs and LaunchPoint. We're on track to stay within budget in fiscal year 21. Certainly expect to be fully staffed by end of May, maybe into June. So that we're looking forward to that. The team has done a tremendous amount of work in the last 12 plus months. We pivoted when this first hit and did a lot of outreach without a business registry. We did a lot of phone calls, a lot of outreach, and I think that really opened a lot of eyes. But now there's relationships with a lot of those businesses, and I think that's been important here as well. So our fiscal year 21 budget, the 7366 number, and recommended 22 budget 7691. We'll get into that, what's really in that budget number here in a second. And really the difference is going to be here, these two budget enhancements that are up in front of you. Jay's going to talk about the new Mesa Business Builder Small Business Assistance Program. She's going to cover that. And then I'll get into the CoStar Commercial Real Estate Database Licensing here in a little more detail. So with that, let me turn it over to Jay.
Thank you, Bill. Mayor and Council, nice to be with you this morning. Good morning. As you know, for years, the Office of Economic Development has several existing programs to support small businesses and entrepreneurs. And over the years, we've actually enhanced some of those programs and added a few more services. For example, we do publish the Mesa Business Resource Guide online annually with updates. We also offer Size Up Mesa, which is a market analysis tool for businesses to evaluate how they can become more competitive. And we also offer Site Search Mesa for owners looking for location assistance. And all of these resources are free to businesses and online. The Office of Economic Development also provides cooperative marketing programs and assistance like our Business Export Assistance Program, as well as our Mesa Business Connection, which is our business retention and expansion program. We also provide workshops and workspaces like ThinkSpot through the library, office and lab space through LaunchPoint and Arizona Laboratories for security and defense research. In fact, we currently manage 26 leases and user agreements with tenants and participants annually, and that is through AZ Labs and LaunchPoint through the Office of Economic Development. And other departments also support small business like the library, downtown transformation and development services, which launched the Mesa Alfresco program and Mesa Open Air, very successful programs. And then as an incentive last year, we added on Mesa Cares programming to reimburse businesses up to $1,000 for patio expansions, which was very successful. So you can see we already have a good program or programs to build on. The Mesa Cares Small Business Technical Assistance Program for the last 6 months of 2020 was quite successful. We partnered with 12 local nonprofits and 35 subcontractors to deliver just over $1 million in technical assistance to more than 250 businesses. We delivered 3,300 hours of one-on-one assistance, coaching and analysis in business planning and strategy, finance, marketing, sales, e-commerce, restaurant operations, and more. And we produced and aired more than 70 webinars in marketing and PR, finance, social media, e-commerce, legal and strategic planning, and more. So after months of implementing the Mesa Cares Technical Assistance Program and providing assistance to small businesses for years prior to that, we felt that we were well positioned to enhance what worked well and then to take all of the best practices and package it. So we launched the Mesa Business Builder and the new website, mesabusinessbuilder.com. And we have worked hard over the last couple of months to generate awareness about the existing programs and services and tools that Mesa does offer. We also took time to survey the participants in Mesa Cares and consider the utilization rate of the various programs and weigh our staff resources that we could commit to ongoing programs. And then we reimagined how we can utilize the Mesa Hub digital platform that was created through the Mesa Cares funding now and beyond. And we created the Mesa Business Builder Small Business Assistance Program. This is a $300,000 enhancement to our general fund budget, and it is the next generation of small business support from the city of Mesa. The goal is to help businesses build business competency, increase competitiveness, and promote resiliency. And the program's really targeted to micro-sized businesses with less than 5 employees, so mom and pops, professional and medical service providers, and then also businesses with less than 25 employees who are looking to modernize their operations and adapt some of their marketing and just become more savvy about operating in today's environment. So the program is the best of Mesa Cares, which includes the Mesa Hub community platform as the foundation. This is a bilingual online platform with an existing library of the 70 webinars that we can continue to add to. So it's an ongoing resource. It provides on-demand, immersive, personalized learning, networking, and communications, and offers real-time data analytics. And I can't stress enough how important it is to provide that on-demand learning, because a lot of the entrepreneurs and small businesses that we were dealing with couldn't come to a webinar that was 8 to 5. Some of them were working at 2 o'clock in the morning. That's when they had time and they were freed up and they didn't have children to worry about, and they could really concentrate on their business. So that's really important. Part of the funding, as you can see, would cover the platform subscription and engagement services, which are key to making sure that the businesses are coming back online and learning about new programs and services that are being offered. And then also we wanted to keep the Restaurant Survival Series, the computer literacy training, which is incredibly important, and the Mesa Alfresco reimbursement program. We also budgeted just a little over half of the funding to go toward one-on-one customized technical assistance. So this is help for businesses who have never had a website and they need a website built, or they don't know how to do social media marketing and they need to really understand that and dig into that. So that's what some of the funding would go to there, along with the case management tool. We had 12 case managers working on the Mesa Cares programming, so doing intake and then assigning out businesses to the appropriate vendors. The case management tool would actually take that on, and we would not have to have the 12 case managers. So that's the beauty of the online platform. The expected outcomes include continued partnerships with nonprofit agencies and consultants, We feel we could serve a minimum of 100 new clients each year, plus 250 existing businesses already on the platform. And the number of businesses assisted, particularly with technical assistance, the one-on-one, really depends on the budget allocated and the type of support that they need. The beauty of this is that it allows the data collection and the reporting on sales revenue, the number of employees, pre and post program, and the confidence level is able to be measured as well with these tools. So with this program, we believe we can continue the momentum that was generated through the Mesa Cares program and really help a lot of businesses in key areas to bridge the digital divide, build resiliency, and build better businesses in Mesa. Bill?
Okay, the second enhancement is the CoStar licenses. And data is key, just like in a lot of things. Data is key not just for our use, but for future employers to understand what our competitive advantages are and what sets us apart from other cities across the nation. So CoStar is a leading commercial real estate database, standard tool for economic development professionals. And we are asked to respond to leads from the state or GPEC with CoStar listings primarily. And right now, we are limited to one. And with the current volume, we can't keep up with things. So we've asked to have a few more licenses. CoStar has limited us and said you're only allowed to have, one person per license. And we were trying for years to use multiple people on that same license, and they sort of caught up with us. So now we're asking for that enhancement. So that's a real important tool for us along the way. Last couple of slides, just want to talk a little bit about successes. Most of you have seen this, certainly when you talk about the Amazon delivery stations and CMC Steel's announcement and Dexcom and their continued investment in Mesa and one of the most recent ones with Electromechanica. But there's activity on the airport with, military training, pilot training that's interesting as well. And I think this is just indicative of what's been going on. The next slide is actually the hard numbers themselves. And I think this is sort of tells the story. Again, jobs created are the ones that sort of catch the headlines. Retention is where the bread and butter of economic development is, with working with your existing business community for expansion purposes. We have had a great year to date. Expect that will continue. I know there are a couple other things we're working on. But this is just what we have assisted with. This is not the total economy. This is just what we've had our fingers into along the way. So I think that's been a big plus. And I guess I want to close on just two factoids. In the pipeline right now, with all that's going on all over Mesa, there is currently 3.2 million square feet that's not yet into planning. Now, what does that mean? It's not into the planning process. We're still working with them to get a vision, get the property tied up, get something put together. But in planning, in all phases of planning, pre-sub, submittal process, going through entitlements, there's over 7 million square feet today in projects. That is by far and away a record number, and it gives you an idea of what's going on in this marketplace. There's property turning over. I try to communicate some of that to each one of you when we get a chance to chat. But that's how deep this team's been running and running hard for a while. So with that, I think we'll close and take any questions.
Thank you. Start with Mr. Luna.
Thank you, Bill and Jay. First of all, Jay, thank you so much for your presentation, especially on the hub. You presented over in MAG. People were very interested in that, and we are truly a model for the whole Maricopa County. So thank you for doing that. I know Gilbert's starting one, I think City of Phoenix, and so you're seeing it more pervasive throughout the valley. So I think that was something that we can really pat our backs on, and thank you for your leadership. And Bill, what about opportunity zones? Is that still in play? We're very fortunate, despite the pandemic, that we were able to continue moving forward. Do we still have that ability to, are we seeing more development because of that?
I will tell you, this market is hot. Opportunity zones are still live, and this is the federal Opportunity Zone program. We were very strategic, and I remember sitting with Chris a few years ago and really getting both airports included, downtown included, and really, strategically working certain things. And the market has gotten so hot, while there is still Opportunity Zone investments going on, the pace of the market has said they can't wait for those Opportunity Zone fundings. So I think we have an announcement. I just read a press release on some development down in District 6 that's in an Opportunity Zone. So you will see that, but some people don't want to wait. There's plenty of capital in the markets, and I think that's what's driving. Time right now is key. Nana and I are on speed dial back and forth between things. So opportunities are still very much in play, but the market's white hot on the industrial side.
And I was wondering if you can speak on retention, because as you know, in our district, District 5, you've been working on some projects, and how is that going relative to the whole community?
Business retention.
Business retention, yeah. And expansion.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mayor. BRE, Business Retention Expansion. A few years ago, one of the recommendations through our accreditation was to have a person dedicated to business retention expansion. Chris agreed with that, gave us a person, and really those relationships are important. And I can look around now, whether it's in, when I look at the big names of Boeing, certainly expanding. But now think of one of our successes from downtown, which was Urbix, that we kept in Mesa and moved to Northeast Mesa. They're now talking about expansions. And that's only 2 years ago that we did that. I mean, and that's how quick things are moving. I can think of SWD Urethane in downtown, south of Broadway and west of Center Street, that, they were ready. They were being told to move, and we said, wait a minute. And working with the building staff and others, really got that turned around, and they've put a nice investment. And those are high-paying jobs in both of those, all three of those situations there. And I can point Banner's expansion. There's a lot going on there. So retention for us is something I would like to spend even more time on, just building those relationships, talking to people. Even the defense contractors, they want us to help with, landing in the next contracts. And so retention is again, a very important piece of the economic development effort. Again, attraction catches the headlines, retention's the bread and butter.
Mr. Thompson.
It's funny, I had to ask Councilmember Luna which button I had to push to early on. It's been over a year since we've been here. Thanks for the presentation. This is really good. I think economic development is the driver, I think, for our community. That to me, it seems as the tide that raises all ships. I know when Councilmember Spilsbury had her committee meeting on economic development, we talked a lot about small business. And I wouldn't mind, honestly, seeing the Small Business Assistant Program have a little healthier enhancement. Because I know there were some things that we talked about doing besides the one-on-one training, educate by subject matter experts, but really trying to delve into what is it that the new startup doesn't know, and how can we help them get up and running and get them tied to Mesa, so they're starting their business in Mesa and staying in Mesa. So I'd like to see a little more healthier enhancement in that arena. I agree, Bill, with CoStar. If you need more licensing, don't be afraid to ask. You can't all huddle around one computer and expect that you're going to meet the demands of the market. And Mesa is red hot. I'm watching the headlines, and it doesn't matter where you go in the city, we're booming. Riverview is taking off. We got things happening in downtown now. Things are certainly happening in my districts, going crazy. The Falcon Field area. So the whole city is exploding with growth and commercial and development, and industrial development. And so, you talk about we've got almost 11 million, 12 million square feet of industrial. Was it all industrial that was being built?
Primarily.
Primarily.
By far.
So. The question I always ask every single year is, do you have the people that you need to get your job done effectively and efficiently? And my guess is probably you don't, because we're setting record numbers. And you know, and we have this discussion when we talk to fire and police all the time about adding people to ensure that you're staffed adequately so you're not burning out your staff. And with everything that's going on across the entire city, I'm afraid you're gonna, you know, your employees are gonna be burning the candle at both ends, and they're gonna be stressed and overstressed. So don't be afraid to ask for more help. If you need more help, put it in the budget. This council is very supportive of economic development. I think you'll be okay with that. I think that's all I have. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilmember Spilsbury.
Yes, thank you so much. Great presentation. I'm super excited about everything happening with your office. I just had a question about the small business stuff. What kind of data do we have to see? Are we having businesses use this kind of stuff once or to continue to use it? How many used it last year that are continuing to use it this year?
Vice Mayor and Councilmember Spilsbury, thank you for the question. We actually have the 250 businesses who are currently on the Digital Hub coming back to view the webinars. So when we looked at the CARES data at the end of December, there were about 15% of the businesses who had watched more than 10 webinars. And then the rest had kind of, you know, been broken up into watching 3 or 4, and that was in December. So we're sure that more of them have come back. But that's one of the reasons we want to have the community engagement piece built into the program so that we can continue to survey and poll and advertise and promote other workshops that we're doing and new webinars. So talking about, you know, turning some of what we've done in development services into tutorials that are online and digital. One of the other things we learned through the CARES program is that not a lot of people have time to read and really dig into the granularity that is in code and signage. So if there's a way we can make it a little more friendly with just an online tutorial, we want to do that with some brief webinars and produce those and put those on the Digital Hub. And the Digital Hub is really available to all of Mesa businesses. You basically just fill out a couple of questions and then you have access. But we looked at the utilization of what the participants were needing most, and it really leaned more toward marketing and website and bridging that digital divide. The computer literacy classes were extremely popular. There were some people who didn't own a computer. They were trying to do their business on their cell phones. You know, so really I think it allowed us to customize the services we provided to the business, and we want to continue to do that. So in terms of, you know, increasing funding, while I love that idea, I think it's a matter of being able to serve the businesses in the best possible way and concentrate the funding where most needed, and then having the resources to be able to handle the volume too.
Is there any movement on a small business database where we could, you know, have know what businesses are in the city so we can reach out to them better? I'm going to keep bringing this up.
No, the business registry, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, like a small business registry, so that we could actually reach out to all these businesses to let them know we have
No,
this.
we're, sorry, sucking in fibers
Getting
from my
choked
mask.
up over this.
We're bringing that back to council.
Okay.
It was teed up right a year ago, and then we shut everything down. So we are refreshing it. We hear council, so we'll be bringing that to the council.
Okay,
That'll
awesome.
come through Ed Queen's group through business license.
Okay, just so then we can actually, you know who we need to reach and who is needing help better. So thank you so much.
Vice Mayor Duff.
Well, congratulations on all your success for small businesses and large businesses. It's incredible, and you have an incredible team. And I especially want to say thank you to Jay I'm a small business owner, and I know what it means to have that assistance. I wish it was available at the time that I had my business. I've had it over 30 years. So, and I haven't utilized it at this point because I'm really on a closing down or slowing down the business. But anyway, thank you for all your work on small business. I can't say more about how thankful I am to see small businesses. It's so hard as a small business to start your business and know everything from a CEO level down to a janitorial level and everything in between. And you're kind of navigating on your own by your own, mistakes and successes, and it's very unnerving. So to have those guidance is everything. I'm very proud to see, especially the businesses that have started here in Mesa and it's been successful, as some of them that you have mentioned. And I would love to see Mesa as the place if you want to start and grow your business. I have an idea, I want to give a go at it. Where should I embark upon this? And with the assistance and support we have here, I would hope that they would consider Mesa as a natural choice in order to do that. So thank you for your work in doing that. One of the things that has come forward to me through small businesses, they have asked me, had questions and concerns how to have financial literacy. So many of the things, even applying for any kinds of loans, assistance, anything like that, they have to have their financials in order. They have to have a P&L and a balance sheet in order to apply to the SBA, to a small bank. Even to understand, your assets and liabilities and your cash flow, all those things, just some basics to help a business, because they kind of get stuck on how to put that together so they can take the next step for growth. And maybe, I was glancing through the Business Builder right now, and there may be some resources there, but I want to make sure that we have some kind of course, not even a course, more hands-on, because I think each business is unique on how they've started the business and kept their books, and they don't know how to get it to the next level. So even with a tutorial, it may not apply from how they've done it, whether manually or a QuickBooks, or even just an understanding of a P&L and a balance sheet and what that means. So if we can make sure that we have some kind of assistance in that, I think it will really help them get to the next step of getting the financial assistance for their growth. So I think the only other suggestion I had is if we had a means for input from small businesses of certain matters or subject matters that they would like more assistance on or more information on, and then we could look at those sources and bringing them into our Business Builder. And also on the webinars that we have, do we refresh those or offer a 2.0? Maybe they went through the beginning level and now they want to take it into a more advanced level, that we look at our growth in that way and assisting their growth here in Mesa. Thanks.
Mr. Freeman.
Thank you, Jay and Bill. I was looking at slide 9 and the last bullet point, data collection and reporting. Can you explain that a little bit more, what you're driving there?
Slide 9.
Yes, Mayor and Councilmember Freeman, thank you for the question. Yes, so the data collection that we are able to do on the hub is pretty deep. We are able to track, for example, 51% of the businesses on the platform who are participating in technical assistance were minority-owned businesses. And we were able to also drill down to number of employees that they had pre-COVID, post-COVID. We were able to look at their revenue increases. Were they up, down, the same? And then we also are able to survey them on a weekly basis if we want to, but every month there was a survey that went out to sort of take the temperature of how they felt about doing business during the pandemic. And you saw improvement from the beginning to about October or November, and then we did the final survey in December. So it's really a way for us to ask the businesses directly who are participating in the program what's going on with their business. And so, Vice Mayor, when you were talking about the financial classes, we did offer those and they were popular, but the most, the quality classes really came in the form of the one-on-one technical assistance where the business could meet with a legal advisor about maybe how to set up their business as an S corp versus an LLC, and so they were able to have those confidential conversations. We will still absolutely offer those. What's helpful, though, is we've found it's to have them have kind of a phase 1 class so they can get the vocabulary down and just a general understanding of what they need to know. And then they're much more effective when they do meet one-on-one with that attorney or that CPA to really get the most out of those appointments. You also mentioned, getting input from the businesses on what they wanted. That's very easy for us to do on the hub. We can put up a survey and ask them, what do you need now? So many things have changed, over the course of the pandemic with PPP and the EIDL programs. And so we're able to offer sort of real-time classes or webinars and refresh content. So we think that's critical. We need to make sure we continue to build that library and build it with programming that is relevant now and over the next few months so that they keep coming back to us.
Good, thank you. And the reason I said that, I pointed that out because I think our city is based on a lot of small businesses, and strengthening those foundations in our businesses help them become successful. And as like the Vice Mayor is saying, our city is successful as well in implementing these programs. The only question I have is why isn't Bill answering that 2 a.m. service call if that business needs that? Our public safety people do that all the time.
I'm probably awake, so why not?
Okay, I just had to throw that in for Bill. Thank you.
Good to know. I think we all have a green light to call Bill at 2 in the morning. Councilmember Heredia.
I didn't know if you all could see me, but thank you for the information. I think it's positive steps that we've taken in this past year in supporting small businesses and all the work that you all did to do that. One question, Bill, what are you mentioned some industries, but what are kind of the industries that are looking at Mesa as to expand and relocate here? I know healthcare is probably one of the dominant ones, but is there other industries, or what are the top 3 or 5 industries that are looking to us here in the East Side?
So, Councilmember, thank you for the question, and I think that Mesa will always be very strong in the aerospace and defense industry. So I think that will continue to go as long as there's money in those federal budgets. You'll see that growth. But some of the newer ones that we're seeing, obviously electric vehicles, and I think that will continue to grow. Certainly with Atlas Motor Vehicles up in Northeast Mesa to the announcement electromechanic, and I think there's more on the horizon. And then you have that supply chain as well. So that's one. Medical devices. We've seen a combination of the Dexcom story is a fantastic one, and they've, invested heavily and continued to grow and now giving back to the community. But then long-time standards here in Mesa, Our Precision spun off Our Medical, which is a medical device company actually in your district, council members. So that's an exciting piece. They took 100,000 square feet in the Broadway 101 corridor. So for us, helping that medical device industry continue to grow. You're right, healthcare will keep going, but now we're going to see a lot more with technology. Whether we like it or not, you're going to see a lot more data center interest. How much can you handle is the next question. But I think that's going to be continued growth. Everybody has devices. Jim's over here working away. There's data being stored. That demand is going to continue to grow. But the technology companies are now starting to come in around that. We seeded it with those data center companies, those big brand, big tech names, and now you're starting to see the supply chain and technology companies sort of fill in around that as well. So those are some off the top of my head. I'm not sure if I have probably more if I put some thought to it, but off the top of my head, that's some of the top ones.
Okay. Well, thank you. I just want to say amen to what both you have said and what the council said. It's kind of interesting to look back a year ago. We were all very nervous, weren't we? And wondering how what the economic impact of the pandemic was going to be, and if we were looking at another 2007 and 8. And so it's been really rewarding and fun to see how the economy of our city has done, in some ways, better than ever. But at the same time, there's a lot of individuals in our city, as you know, that have been devastated economically by this. And so I appreciate the great efforts that you've put into the Small Business Assistance Program. I think part of the reason why we weathered the storm as well as we did is some good policies that this city management and council has adopted over the last several years. I'm thinking about the investment in infrastructure in Southeast Mesa, the streets, the fiber conduit, the water, the working with utility companies to bring electricity to all of these areas that are now really some of the most attractive places in the United States to start a business. So I give kudos to this council and to the councils before us that have laid a good foundation that we're now reaping the benefits of. And just to remind all of us that we're not done yet, and we still need to continue to invest in our city so we can continue to see these success stories line up and come into our city. Question for you. I had a small business reached out to me yesterday and told me that they're struggling on the verge of closing. And it was just a good reminder to me that, again, we're not done, that there's a lot of individuals out there that the economy is not working for. The next round of federal assistance, the American Rescue Plan, the American Jobs Plan, I mean, what is Mesa Cares 2.0 going to look like? And to what extent, are we going to continue to be in the Small Business Assistance Program, maybe larger than what you've suggested today?
So, Mayor, I'll try to answer that question. I think as we've talked with council, you have to have a connection between even those federal dollars and COVID. One of the things that we've thought about is how we could create legacy projects that went beyond just paying a rent or utility, and really almost like what we're talking about today, creating the fundamentals that become part of the business that endure well beyond the webinar that they saw, but it becomes something that an asset or becomes a skill that grows that company. Right now, one of the areas that we're exploring, and maybe Jay and Bill can expand a little bit upon this, is we are looking at, I'm not sure if we've come up with the right name, for the second floor of the studios building, is building out some of that space to support small business entrepreneurs. And so we're also doing that in conjunction with an application with EDA.
Correct.
And so what we're hoping to do is use the American Rescue dollars, possibly. Now, I say that with big caveats because we still haven't seen any guidance on how we can use it. So let's just assume that it would be possible. We would use the American Cares dollars to pay for the tenant improvements on that second floor. Remember, the second floor of the studios is kind of just shelled out. And then carve out a space to support small business entrepreneurs. I mean, the studio is intended to grow and nurture the ideas and the concepts of a small business, but then having a space where we could facilitate even additional support for small business. So having a physical presence too, we think would have a resource and be able to bring people in for training. So that's one of the concepts that we would then, how could we continue to use that? Now having, Jay's figured out how to do this very digitally, and I think that'll work because some businesses won't have a chance to come down physically. But we do think there is kind of that one-on-one opportunity and interaction, whether it's where they meet with the consultants or whether they have in-person seminars or just having resources where they can come. So that's what our hope is, Mayor, is that we use those funds mostly in all the same categories we use Mesa Cares, whether it's food distribution or whether it's utility assistance or small business assistance or homeless, that we try to envision how we can use the rescue dollars in a long-term legacy investment. Not to say we wouldn't use any of it for other types, but we want to focus on those first. Broadband is the other one. So as we're working through some ideas, working with the nonprofits, we're trying to find ways that we can leverage the build out of the asset and leverage then partnerships with nonprofits to help us take over the operations of those future improvements. So that's a very loose, broad idea right now.
I can see we need, I mean, we'll know more when we know more, right? When we get the regulations and we know how much and how it can be spent. But I look forward to working with economic development and city management to get that money. I'm proud of the way that we've just passed out the last round of funding. And I think there were a lot of people, well, Jay and Bill, you could tell us a lot of really heartwarming stories of people whose lives and livelihoods and families were really blessed as a result of that money. And if we have an opportunity to do something like that again, that would be wonderful. So I guess we'll stay tuned and look forward to working with you on that.
Thank you.
Again, congratulations on a banner year. And we'll look forward to more good. What have you done for us lately? You know, great. All right.
Hang on, we got another one.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Next item on our agenda is to hear from the Fire and Medical Services. Thank you for waiting patiently. Well, I'll be the first one to note that we, even with her mask on, the celebrity Mary, the National Fire Chief of the Year, we're proud of you, Mary, well deserved. Thank you for bringing notoriety to your department and to our city.
Thank you, Mayor. It's the men and women I work with every day that deserve that recognition, but thank you.
And before you start, and this is the last thing I'll say, I also was at Dexcom a couple of days ago with Dr. Kara Christ from the state of Arizona, the medical director of the state of Arizona, and she walked up to me and the first thing she said is, "I love Mary Camelli."
I paid her. I said, if you see the mayor, say
So,
this.
thanks again for making friends for us all over the
Of
state.
course. Thank you, Mayor. Economic development is a tough act to follow. I mean, I don't want to disappoint anybody. We're not going to be telling about how much money we're bringing into the city, but we can surely think of ways to spend some of that money. And anytime you want us to wake up Bill Jabginiak at 2 a.m., we'd be happy to do that. So just let us know. First, I want to thank my senior staff. I'm going to introduce them all because they've really helped this organization through this tough time. To my right is our Deputy Director, Tara Cunha. My assistant chiefs, our newest assistant chief, John Laughlin, as of February. Assistant Chief James Johnson. In the second row, you have Chief Corey Hayes and Chief Mike Dunn. Between the four assistant chiefs, we have 110 years of experience in the fire service. So we have a great team here working. And also part of our senior staff is Deputy Chief Forrest Smith. He's also in the second row. And you all know Forrest, our public information officer that does a great job, and he runs our community outreach. And I'd be negligent not to thank my assistant, Julie Bigler. She keeps me on task on my calendar every day. So also, I need to thank all the men and women on the fire department. I tell you, during this COVID year, we had to restructure priorities based on what everybody was doing, and all of us were doing it in the city. From PPE, and all of you were involved in that and helping us keep that up, you know, restructuring resource to make sure we managed all the supplies, how we revised our training academies to make it work, our training for fire, for EMS. We really had to improvise and continue that. Our school programs, we had to do virtual and do videos so the kids still watched us and taught about safety. Our social services went to porch visits. They went to phone calls to make sure the people that needed the service were not forgotten, and still we kept in touch with them. And the areas that couldn't do their jobs, like our fire prevention folks couldn't go out to many businesses for a short period of time, they went and jumped in other areas that were getting inundated with work, so they all did that. And lastly, our first responders. They went out, they were engaged, they were involved. Every day they were working with COVID patients. We had to make sure they had the supplies and the equipment they needed, not to bring things home to their families. They had elderly people living with them, babies in their home. So we had to make sure that we continued to support them as they went through this every day. And also I want to thank Mr. Brady, John Pombier, yes, John Pombier, I'm including John Pombier, and Mayor and Council for your continued support for us as we move forward. We couldn't do what we do without your support, so we really appreciate that. And also, I want to thank the public for supporting our public safety tax. Because of that support, we're able to get the resources we need to continue providing the highest quality of care, a service for our community that they deserve, and thank you for that. Okay, so we'll start with our mission statement. I think you've all heard this before: to serve with care, compassion, accountability, respect, and excellence. You ask anybody on the fire department what the mission statement is, and they should be able to tell you. And if they ever wonder what it is we expect of them, they know this is what we expect every day on every call and with each other. And if they do that, in which they do, they're fulfilling the mission of the organization. We thought we'd start with where PD ended on Monday. They ended with their HQ, which I think HQ sounds much cooler than administration building, so we might have to look at that. But they talked about their HQ building being built in the 70s. I hate to trump anybody, but ours was built in the 60s. So I think seniority should trump. Mr. Brady mentioned that we'll probably ask to be next. Actually, I'm asking to be first because of seniority. And I didn't see any of my PD brothers and sisters in the back, so I'm sure they wouldn't mind funding our HQ as well. So this is something we looked at. It follows all the guidelines that they use too for innovation, technology, low stress. We thought this would meet our needs in the near future. So we'll see when that... Oh, we'll have to take care of that too. All right. Let's go ahead. Go ahead, Tara. We'll start with Tara's slide.
All right, you're probably a little more familiar with this slide now. The first half, the top half is our public safety sales tax and our general fund. And I'll just go over that real quick on the revised budget at the 95 million and our year-end estimate is at 96. There is a little bit of savings in the public safety sales tax that offsets our overage in the general fund. Much of that is due to the 3% merit and the $2,000 bonus that we received that hasn't been put into the budget yet. We also have some overtime expenses for the pods that we hope to get fully recovered. And then our proposed budget for next year is at the 105 million. That includes 7 million of that, what PD talked about, the public safety sales tax, how they're doing a different change on how they're repaying it. And then the bottom half is our transport funds, and you can see the expenditures that we've had to date there.
Okay.
Vice Mayor Duff.
Before we go to the next slide, on the medical, fire, and transport fund, incident response is a dramatic change from 1920 to 2021. Can you talk about that a little bit? Thank you.
I think the majority of that is our, that's the public safety sales tax that we've added, and there's positions in there, and then the PSPRS increases.
That's this one,
Right.
this one right here.
She said this change.
Oh,
So
that's
it's a fairly new program, the transport fund.
Right.
So that's just ramping up, that's why. You did the billing, we didn't start the billing. We start-
Transport's only in the bottom. Is that what you're
Right.
asking? Oh, I'm sorry. I thought we were talking about the top part. Okay, yeah. So that's ramping up every year. They've, it just was in its infancy then. And
Right.
so they've added,
It was like a partial year
Right.
when
Yeah.
we started it, so.
And we've continued to add units to it.
Buying the vehicles and
Yes,
positions mostly.
position and positions.
Mr. Luna.
Thank you so far. In terms of transport costs, are we recovering what, in terms of transport? How's it coming along?
Yeah. Councilmember Luna, Mayor, we are fully recovering our operational costs in the transport fund.
Okay. And then- However, okay.
She was very good at what she just said. But she didn't give you the whole picture. We are only covering the day-to-day costs. We do not recover the investment that we had to do to start it up. So we're not covering the vehicle costs. It's a fund that over a period of, it would take almost 7 to 8, maybe longer years, based on the current recovery of revenues and the initial investment for the equipment, the vehicles, and then staffing. Right now, the last schedule I saw, it was out 8 or 9 years before we break even. The challenge there, of course, is by about that time, you're replacing those vehicles. One of the things we are going to consider is maybe looking at trying to use some of the funding, again, going back to the rescue dollars. Maybe we can use that to purchase vehicles that would come into the program to help bring that cost down. But today, if you take all costs, not just operations costs, capital costs included, because you can't do a transport program if you don't have the ambulance. So it does not break even at this point. It does cover the O&M, but not the capital.
So I had another question relative to personnel. I know that Councilmember Thompson they're building a fire station in his district. and mine is like 2023. So are you anticipating the cost of personnel to fill those stations as well?
The cost of personnel for, yes.
A new station.
To build the program?
Yes, they're built into the schedule, just like you asked the question
Yeah.
for PD, same thing. In the, we have a separate fund for the public safety tax where we can go see it. And in there, the schedule budget has put in based on the academies and getting those positions, those additional positions brought in time to fill those slots when that I call it the public safety complex comes open. So both for police and fire, we're built in the schedule of those employees coming on.
Yes, thank you.
And real quick, if I may, and also, Chris, do you want to talk about the offsetting funds that DMB is providing for the fire station as well?
Yeah, and that's been included in, what's the East Mark station number?
21.
21, sorry. I know by East Mark. Yes, all that's been taken into consideration.
Okay. All right, some of the improved enhancements that we have to date. We got $300,000 for holdover training. This is critical for us to provide our quarterly training to keep our firefighters well-trained. Also, fuel and maintenance, that has to be maintained. We have 3 positions here. We have a civilian medic, a program assistant for staffing, and a department training and safety specialist. The department training and safety specialist, we had it as a temp employee. Now we're just making it part-time, non-benefited. But I just want to talk briefly about the civilian paramedic, what this person is going to do. Right now in our, what we have is called Abatement machines, and they're like a vending machine for all of our medications that we give. And also it has some expensive disposable supplies in it. It has to be a certified medic that fills that machine, refills that machine, because there's controlled substances in it. We have 8 of them in the city. How these are helpful is because right now our medics used to have to go to the pharmacy and the ERs and wait, and they were out of service that much more time waiting to restock all their medications that they used down the scene. Having the UCAP at the fire station, they go right back in service, go right back to the station, restock right there. So it makes it allows us to get back in service much quicker. We have 8 today, and right now we're slated to have 8 more by the end of April. So this person, not their whole job, but a good part of their job will be making sure these machines are stocked. It also tells you if the medications are expiring and all of that. So it's going to be very helpful for us. And right now, a sworn person does that job. So we're going to put a sworn person back and doing other things and replace it with a civilian medic.
So that's a big move. It's a captain level position that's doing it now?
Right.
So we can put that back into the fire services and backfill it with a civilian position.
Right.
But we need the additional civilian position to do that.
And then to date, here's where we are with the public safety funds. You can see in 1920, we added 2 MRs. We've added a battalion 204, another ARU, a peak ARU. That's a 4-person unit that works, 7A to 7P. And if needed during the weekends, we have them break down and become rovers to save on overtime. So that's been in place now since 1920. 2021, we've already hired for Station 21. That's slated to be done in October, unless Beth does some magic and it happens before then. But right now it's October. We're excited for that. And we did get another training captain. And then the 2 positions that I just explained. And also Station 22 was coming up in 22-23 timeframe. That's the Northeast Public Safety Facility. That will be at Howard McClellan. And Councilman Luna, I think that's your area. So we're excited for that as well. And now we'll have Chief Laughlin discuss the slide.
Good morning. The slide you see on this, the chart you see on this slide illustrates our call volume going back a few years. As you can see, we have a pretty consistent increase in our call volume, and we use that, look at current trends, and we project call volume moving forward. It's been about a 2 to 3% consistently over the last decade or so, and we expect that to continue moving forward. In addition to that, we talked about our deployment model. The first thing we do with our deployment model, we try and be very flexible with our deployment model. And when I say that, that just means where do we put all of our assets, our engines, our ladders, and our medical response units. And we start with our call volume. We also look at our travel times. And then we also look at the availability of the engines or ladders or MRUs in their first due area. And we review that pretty consistently. We review that with city management and our other partners. We focus, like I said, on call volume, travel times, and first due availability. And you can see that one of the great additions to our fleet was the medical response units. Those peak times, 7A to 7P, smaller units. They are 4-person, of course. But those we can be very flexible with because it's a lot easier to move those around as we continue to evaluate the travel times, the response times, and the call volumes. And we do that on a monthly basis. Like, again, we meet with city management pretty consistently to kind of evaluate to make sure we understand where the trends are, where the call volume are, and where we need to make sure that we put our apparatus. So that's...
So, yeah, and John, real quick, just I think everything John says is wonderful. Council, as you look at this graph, pay attention to the different colors, right? So the red on the bottom is fire response, or probably, yeah, fire. Is it just limited to fire, the red?
Yeah, the blue is predominantly the medical. There are a few calls in there that require the heavy-duty apparatus, and the red is fires, special operations calls, and the like.
My point is, as you can see, even going back to 2010 or whatever, that type of call has been fairly flat. And that's not different than what we told you, whatever, since we've been talking about response times. Obviously, where we're seeing the growth and where the pressure is being put on the fire and medical department is on the medical side. And so, as John said, the department's been very good at understanding the need to have the flexibility to respond to medical calls and how we place those, and looking at that data on a regular basis, because the last time I saw it, even those medical calls have seasonality, they have times of the day or days of the week, so they have to need that. Building in those MR units really gives them the flexibility to address what the real increase, the pressure is really on the medical calls into the system at this time.
Is that really saying there's no increase in fire calls
It's
for
very
22
small.
years?
In relative to medical, it's very small.
Okay, even though there's way more houses and buildings and
Yeah,
everything. Wow.
most of our medical calls on the east side are gonna, because of the houses, new houses, are gonna be medical calls.
Mr. Freeman, are you going to be able to not say something now?
Well, Chris, and I think, thank you, Mayor, for calling me out. I do have another question, but on this one here, I think a lot of this is related to our population growth in our community over the years.
You know, I think we even ran that analysis to take out that, to put in that variable of population. And yes, there's no doubt that has a part of it. But I believe the last time one of the times I remember talking about this with our data scientists, that there's another factor too. It's growing faster than even the population. So I think it also has a tendency to do with healthcare and individuals' access to healthcare. So yes, population is part of that demand, no doubt. But something else is happening too, where you know, our medical departments become kind of like I don't know what the right word is, but
Yeah.
the first call
Primary care
for-
physician.
Yeah, it's like the primary, and they get those kinds of calls. So it's both. It's but I would say we can't dismiss that there's something happening in the healthcare area that is also putting more demand on the medical staff.
So, Chief, did you want to say something?
No, go ahead.
Okay, you lean forward. Yeah, I get that. I think the thing is that we need to be flexible, and I like our MR units that allow the department to meet the needs. You know, medical is always going to be there for our community, so we need to be able to deploy that and have, and I endorse, additional units as they come available for our community and growth, because as you know, there are some areas in our city that are, not that I advocate an all-hazard unit, but then in some areas, the MR units, when they only work from 7A to 7P, that doesn't give some of the personnel a break in the evening time when calls ramp up. And then, but the data science, is Mark still doing the data work, or he's the data miner?
Yeah, we still work. We collaborate with Mark and Chalet and city management on
Okay.
all that.
All right, thank you. But I'll wait for another question at the end.
Mr. Thompson?
On that same path, and when we talk about the increase in medical and the fact that a lot of people are using you guys as their primary care physician, are we then, do we try to help folks sign up for state health insurance or Medicare, Medicaid, whatever it is, so that they can get their own primary care physician so that maybe we can see these numbers start to come down at some point in time?
Mayor, Councilmember Thompson, so we don't sign them up for that, but our social services group connects them with the right resources. So when we find patients that we go on regularly for primary care type things, that's when our social services team comes out, they connect them with the right resources, and that reduces the number of times they call 911. And that'll be part of our presentation later on. But yes, we're addressing that the best we can right now.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, they have a great story about the frequent flyers
Right.
and how they try to help
Right.
address those.
The other thing I'd like to address about the fires, I know there are few, but we just never know when, where. If the data can tell us when we're going to have them and where we're going to, that would be much easier for us, right? But that can't happen. So that's why we have our units strategically placed across the city, because we never know where and when. And ironically, this past, 2 weeks?
Yeah.
We've suddenly had several fires that unexplained. You know, we had apartment fire, we had a house fire, we had, just several fires that just came up in the past 2 weeks. So that's something we can never predict, but we do have more medical calls than fire calls for sure.
Vice Mayor.
Yes, I agree on the fires. I have heard, especially in the central area, fire calls and seen the alerts.
Yes.
And I want to thank you for the incredible job you did. There was a fire in my neighborhood just around the corner, and it was in homes that were close together, and they were very old homes, so, they're fuel for the fire. And it was a very robust fire on Drew.
Yes.
And I went by in the day after to look at it. Oh my gosh, the entire house and structure and yard was gone, and the houses, which are only feet away, were intact and didn't show any. The way that you guys got on top of that fire and got it out in a quick amount of time, because it was very hot, was incredible. I was very impressed, because I thought certainly there would have been damage to the surrounding homes from that. Incredible. So thank you for that work. One of the other cities, I'm on the MAG, Human Services Committee, and there was a presentation, I was trying to remember, it was Glendale, Peoria, one of the western cities, had done an experiment on doing wellness checks on the frequent flyers, the ones that are often calling, and doing them as preventive measures. So not waiting for the phone call, but doing regular checks that fit into the system in order to prevent those emergency calls, which usually would come when there's a lot of other emergencies going on.
Yes.
Do we do anything like that?
Okay, yes. Mayor, Vice Mayor, Forrest will be talking about this exact thing coming up, and he'll explain to you how we manage the frequent flyers. And to your point about the fire, that I appreciate you bringing that up, because I think it's important that, what the exposures that are out there, that's why when you see so many fire trucks on the scene, it's to protect exposures too. So not only are we fighting the fire on the house, but we're protecting all the surrounding areas to make sure they don't catch fire as well. So that's why the number of units on scene are there for a purpose. But thank you for that. Appreciate it.
Chief, in spite of the obvious increase that over decades in medical calls that we've been talking about, this year it went down. Kind of oddly, right?
Yes.
Now I'm assuming that's because people are driving less and we have fewer motor vehicle accidents.
Right.
Is that it, or is there more to it?
No, 2020 was obviously an anomaly year with the COVID impact. And so we did see a reduction in call volume, especially the March to June, and then it kind of picked up after that again. But again, meeting with our data scientist friends and city management, we've watched this year, and it's right back where it left off. So 2020 was certainly a low year, but that is not the trend. The trend has already picked right back up where it was in 2019.
And Mayor and Council, the interesting thing about this too during COVID was not as many people wanted to be transported to the hospital. So they just didn't want to be exposed any more than they needed to. So the number of transports was actually lower as well. They just didn't want to go.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right, Chief Johnson, on cancer abatement.
Okay. Good morning, Mayor and Council. Cancer continues to be a struggle for all of us, and I just want to start with we appreciate the support that we've gotten from everybody, the thoughts and the prayers and the money that comes in for these programs. So we appreciate that, and I just want to talk about 3 of them that we've been working on. First, our clean cab concept in our fire trucks. The clean cab concept revolves around the whole truck, but as you can see a picture there of the cab, our new trucks will have all vinyl They'll have non-porous floors and things like that so that they can be easily wiped and cleaned. We also took our SCBA, our breathing packs. Those are now out of the cabs, and they're in a compartment in the rear of the truck so that those do not constantly emit the carcinogens that are exposed. And we committed, one side of the truck is for fire equipment and one side is for medical, so that cross-contamination, if we're going on a medical call, we're not being cross-contaminated there. And then finally, the fresh air that comes in through the AC and the heater, that is all inside the cab, so it doesn't pull any outside air in. So when we're on those fires, the air stays clean inside. So that's the clean cab concept. The turnouts, we also have some of our stations, we have about 5 stations that have turnouts that are in the bays. So we are developing systems to remove those out of the bays to stop that contamination as well. And then the last one, the diesel extraction system. We received a grant in the city. We're funding some of that as well, a matching grant portion. But those diesel exhaust systems are coming in to our stations. They'll come in, as you know, the diesel truck starts and stops. It emits emissions in the bay. So this will take the emissions out of the bay, keep this stuff out of the bay and out of our inside of our stations. So those are going to occur in 16 of our stations that were built prior to 2003. And the design of those, we're working closely with engineering to get that done. The design should be done in July, and we look forward to those be in the stations. So again, we want to thank everybody for their support, and those are the 3 of the subjects that we're working on.
I want to add, Mr. Brady's been very, very supportive. We've had several members come down, been diagnosed with cancer, and the city's been amazing in helping them through it. And, you know, the presumptive cancer that we're going through, to James's point, it's a big deal, and we've had a few people that just been recently diagnosed as well. But the city's been amazing in supporting us on that, so thank you. Chief Hayes.
Okay, good morning, Mayor, Council. It is exciting to see everybody back in person. I'm with Bill. This is a nice to see everybody back. I run into Councilmember Freeman almost twice a week. It's somewhere where he's taking somebody to lunch. It's not us, but he's taking somebody to lunch.
It's his small business assistance program.
But it's nice to see the rest of you.
Apparently.
Katie keeps telling me, but I haven't gotten my invite yet. So I get to talk about training. We are super excited about a lot of the things that are going on out at our training facility. I think based on Chief's comments, I want to go ahead and talk a little bit about some of the changes that we had to make this past year. As you guys are well aware, we do a lot of hands-on in-person training in the fire department, and both fire training and EMS training. And we had to make some hard lefts and kind of navigate through this to figure out how we were going to deliver critical and essential training to our members with the least amount of risk. Understanding that our job has inherent risks, but we needed to also make sure that we were keeping a safe workforce. So we did a lot of changes. We transitioned to doing some of our EMS training virtually, which was a really new thing for us, but thus far, it's been extremely successful. So we're seeing some of the CEs, the continuing education training that we do, that we think long-term can be delivered in some level of virtual manner. We did some of the stuff we have to do in person, as you can imagine. We have to do hands-on skills training. We changed those to small group training specific to individual crews that were already essentially living together and you know, together for 24 hours at a time, so that was the safest environment to put them in small group learning sessions, which did put a lot of work on our training staffs to kind of figure out how we were going to get to 30-plus crews on 3 different shifts to get out and make sure that they were all getting the appropriate level of training that they needed to stay competent as both paramedics and EMTs. And then on the fire ground, we did some training changes with our recruit academy as well as hands-on live fire training. Again, having to go to small, we did almost like a rapid small sessions. So instead of doing 4-hour sessions with 20 or 25 personnel, we went to 1-hour quick trainings with 1 crew at a time or 2 crews physically distanced out on the training facility grinder. So it's worked out pretty well. It's a lot of work for the training staff, but we think we've been able to make it work and continue to decrease exposures. As you know, we don't get to stop hiring and training recruits, though. Recruits, like for PD, are critical essential, and we have to get our firefighters on the streets. So that was one of the areas that we were nervous about, and we saw the greatest amount of risk. We did a lot of coordinating with all of our regional partners. So there's 4 main recognized automatic aid fire training academies in the metropolitan Phoenix area. Phoenix Fire, Mesa Fire, the Glendale Regional Training Facility, the Grip Stick, and Chandler Fire. So all of those training academies, their leadership teams came together to come up with best practices for how to make sure we're delivering training to our recruits, and this continues at this point, in the safest manner to make sure that we didn't see a rapid spread of COVID through our recruit academies, which is a high risk when there's not a way to put on SCBAs and your breathing apparatus and not have a risk of exposure to the person that you're on the hose line with during those training drills. So we've done a really good job. It's gone very well. We did some unique changes to how we did recruit graduation. Several of you got to see that. Our class of 20-2, we essentially did a drive-in movie style recruit graduation. Built a giant, it was kind of like a big screen, only it wasn't really a screen. It was just, I guess it was just wood and you know, cloth. But it worked great. We were able to show the video. We were able to, our communications division helped us to put a repeater so that you turned it to a radio station and you could hear what was being said at the graduation in your car with your family, and no real risk of exposure. So we were able to do a graduation of, I think it was 43 recruits with family members for all of them and loved ones, and had a great turnout. So our training staff, both EMS and fire, have done an exceptional job. The stuff that I'm going to talk to you about today in terms of the budget, you can see that one of the things that was on our budget is we get $1.9 million this year for our 2 recruit academies. We've been doing back-to-back recruit academies. We're not quite PD. We're not overlapping yet, hopefully never, but we do back-to-back recruit academies and have been now for the last 2.5 years. So starting in the 18-2 class, which was September of 18, based on our hiring needs, we have done just back-to-back recruit academies. That's a lot of recruits for a fire academy to turn out. With that, we had 174 fire recruits graduate our recruit academy. 94 of those were Mesa recruits. 80 were our partnering agencies. Partnering agencies could bring a lot to our organization in terms of support for our recruit academies, including RTOs that come out to help support. Often we're getting support from some of the smaller agencies who may only send 1 or 2 recruits, but they send a full RTO or a recruit training officer to come out and support those academies. So it's worked out very well for the Mesa Fire and Medical Department. The track projects. So the facilities upgrades that are going on out at training this year, I can't, you can probably sense my excitement. I'm not sure if you guys are aware, but we've had a couple of hiccups with our burn building. I'm not sure if Beth would call them hiccups. I'm not sure that Mr. Brady would call them hiccups. We're calling them hiccups. It makes me feel better about my job. But this is the year. The burn building project is at about 95% plans. That project we expect to be under construction. So you guys have seen that the previous building has been scraped and we are ready for construction to start. So we're expecting that to be anywhere from May to July. Engineering's telling me July, but in my mind, I keep saying May. We'll see how it goes. The next project we got going on out there is our locker rooms. For those of you who haven't had an opportunity to see the fire locker rooms, I'll let Councilmember Freeman describe them. They are the same locker rooms that were there when the building was built in 1964. we were thinking it's 90. I was going to reach out to Beth.
It's a toilet. I'm like, come on.
I think it was 90, but they have certainly the wear and tear has been. The wear and tear has been rough. So we were lucky enough to get support to do a project on those and are very excited about that project. We expect that's going to start in July. And our track project, which is a joint project, I can't remember if PD touched on it or not. That's a joint PD and fire project that we expect that's going to start in June or July as well. So there's going to be a lot of things going on at our training facility as we lead into summer and then into the fall. It's going to be a very, very busy place, but these are great, great things that are moving and we're seeing a lot of progress. So we're very excited.
Thank you, Chief Hayes. Chief Smith. Social services, here we'll get the questions answered.
Thank you, Chief. Good morning, Mayor. Good morning, Council. Well, the benefits, as you know, that you get with an all-hazards full-service fire department extends way beyond our emergency operations side. And this is the part where I'm really excited to be able to talk about the programs that I have in my area that involves a really amazing group of civilian staff as well as volunteers who are from within our community. So if you'll look to the left of your screen, we basically have two programs I'm showing here. To the left of your screen, you're going to see what is our social services side of the business, and then to the right, which I'll discuss later, is our behavioral health side, which is a private-public partnership that we have on responding to behavioral health calls. Now, to the left, those individuals you see there depict some of our volunteers and interns. I do have 3 full-time staff who work with our volunteers and interns who represent the Arizona State University as well as NAU in providing services to the community. And as Vice Mayor Duff had asked about earlier, one of the big things that we were able to do, and we've been doing this for several years now, is identifying as a result of crew referrals individuals who are pretty much falling through some of the cracks, who may not have had access to certain services. As we know, there's a great deal of collaborative health care available out there, but we found an opportunity to be able to work with providers and work with other behavioral health individuals, social service groups, Adult Protective Service, a great number of groups, as well as some of our own city departments, and be able to come with the collaboration where we can provide some of those folks with services that don't fall in the 911 realm. And so our crews that basically will do these referrals when they go out on calls. When we're in the field, and I agree that, and I would say that many of you on council are the same way, we want to serve. And our crews, when they leave a call, have this sense of, I was able to provide that person with the best service possible. In many cases, it wasn't emergency medical care that they needed. There were other social components involved right there. So our crews will then refer that individual on to our social services group. And what they'll then do is, in some cases, there may be some specific needs that they may have that they'll come out and do. In some cases, it is what we would refer to as those welfare checks. Right around COVID, as Chief had alluded to earlier, we weren't able to necessarily do visits in the home, but what we did do is we did follow-ups. And we checked up on folks to see how they were doing based on the call type. Some situations, if it was a fall call, we would go out or at least call to check and see if there's anything they needed by way of fall bars and the such installed. Historically, prior to COVID, we would actually have our home safety education program go out, do an educational program, and actually install fall prevention bars and the such that. So during COVID, we were able to actually do these follow-ups, check up on folks and be able to find if there were needs. And of course, the program, the Mesa Cares that we had, we were able to incorporate that into the bigger picture and have those folks take part in that. So the social services side, again, crew referrals as well as our crew, the members of social services actually going back, looking at calls and see if they could identify certain social factors that we can come in and affect. And essentially, what we would do is we would go in, and one of the things that we were found here was that we were able to empower members of our community to manage their health care and feel that they can handle it. And we would walk them through that process. And that's where Nan, Jean, and Kelsey, as well as our volunteers, are able to be effective in helping those folks navigate through some of the social issues that they had. Now, we are also doing what we call our high utilizer program, and Mr. Brady had talked about that. And this is something we've been doing for several years now, where we've identified individuals who were calling 911 and using the system more than 3 times a month, which in a lot of cases, we find that there may have been some medical issues right there, but what we were finding a lot of times too is that there are other social components tied into that, and in some cases, behavioral health. So in this high utilizer program, what we did is we would make visits out, check on some of their needs, and we started to see some huge reductions in call volumes. Now, what we also saw is earlier we talked about our responses and the high call volumes on the medical side. Well, what we did is we had a project that was in place that we incorporated over this past 6 months, and that was tied towards Station 205. They started to see a high increase in call volumes. So what we did is we increased our level of education programs we were doing there, working with Sunland Village, the Greenfields, and a few other apartment complexes, and providing more educational information. Then what we did is we identified, and as you'll see on the screen right there, we identified 32 people who had called 911 more than 3 times. And so they basically were utilizing our services 122 times over this period of time. So let me restate that. 32 people had created 122 calls. So what we did is we created these welfare checks where we went out, followed up, found out what some of the issues were. And what we did is we saw that, after a 60-day period of time, the calls dropped to those same individuals down to 59 times, which saw a 52% decrease in call volume. So once again, some of those extra services we're able to provide take a great deal of strain off our crews and provide those individuals with the right service at the right time. Again, these trained civilians who are working in the social services world, making these contacts with community partners, and of course working with our crews who have a sense of ownership and be able to help support those members of our community. Now, over to the right side of the screen leads over to our behavioral health program. Now, PD had presented a version that they have, and we have our version that works. It's a private-public partnership with Crisis Preparation Recovery. This is a holdover from the program that we had back in 2014, which is as a result of the $12.5 million grant that we received for healthcare innovations. Now, that version was somewhat of a different model as far as staffing. The current model has a behavioral health clinician as well as a technician. And what those two do, or those individuals you see in the vehicle that we have right there, is they're called out by crews. Once again, you'll have a crew go on a call and find that this person does not have something that would denote anything that would require medical treatment per se. And in some cases they do, but they may be this person may be in a behavioral crisis. What this behavioral health unit is able to do, titled Community Medicine 2201, now they're able to provide services to that person that allows us to be able to divert them from having to go to the emergency room and over to places that can provide them with the needs that they have. And so as you can see on the chart there, we had, this is from just over a 3-month period of time where we had about 90 psychological calls. And so some of the calls you see as we go down all have to do with some sort of social component as well, which they work with our social services side on. Yes, sir.
Hey, Forrest, great presentation. How are these individuals, the patients, how are they responding to the care that you're providing?
Councilmember Luna, thank you very much for that question there. What we found during the period of time during COVID is we actually had some individuals calling us back and expressing their appreciation, as well as family members. We found even on social media some of the information we got back from people, the responses they had were extremely positive. And again, some of that was tied back to the big picture of what the city had already been doing through Mesa Cares. But currently, we're also finding that there are a great number of people who are starting to realize that if they reach out to us, they're able to cut right to the chase to be able to get some of the service they need. And we've developed a great number of relationships with some people, some of the apartment complexes and some of those places. So it's been an excellent response.
Great. So instead of calling 911, they can call you directly and get the assistance they need? Is that how it works?
That's exactly it. And then in some cases, we have individuals who may live in a housing community or mobile home parks who have the business card of Nanette Rodriguez. They have our business cards and the such, and they know that they can reach out. But we're not looking to replace any of the businesses that are out there. There are already services that are there. What we're doing is we're now all bringing it together, because you may unfortunately have some organizations that may be working in silos because they're not quite aware of some of the other programs. But what we get a chance to do is see the big picture. Then we bring them all together to provide this collaborative care that allows people access to the best care that they need. But in conclusion, what I just wanted to say is, based on the calls that you see right there, there's a great number of calls, but a lot of these would see our behavioral health folks working with family members in the case of a suicide in a home, in the case of some injury as a result of suicide attempts, cardiac arrest that's led to full codes, pediatric codes. They're able to provide some of that support, and in some cases, they'll do follow-ups where we'll have a situation where a crew may have gone on a drowning prior to at one point. Then the crew may reach back out to our behavioral health unit, who will do a follow-up a couple of weeks later to check on the family. So the welfare check side, just on the mental health side, has really been something that we've been able to support our community on. And one thing is that those calls right there showed we had 226 calls for service just for this last 3 months. Last year, we found that we had a great number of calls, obviously more than this, but we were able to divert 343 people away from emergency rooms into the appropriate care, which may include behavioral health, detox centers and some of those type of programs. So again, I do appreciate the support that we've had traditionally from council, and of course, from our city manager's office to be able to provide this additional service to really show the community that this is what All Hazards Full Service Fire Department is. Thank you.
I appreciate this very much, and I know our whole council, as we just a day or two ago when we were talking to police, I think we made the observation we'd like to have a lot more robust presentation on this, and so Mr. Brady, maybe if they could, how the police program and your program collaborate so that we can be better educated. Obviously, the chart that's in front of us shows the very lopsided nature of these services that you're called upon to provide. So we'll look forward to learning a lot more about this. Vice Mayor.
I have a quick question on this. How many CM units do we have right now?
Well, Vice Mayor Duff, Mayor Council, we currently have 1 unit in place, and we've had somewhat of a modified schedule right now, but what it is we've lined up that single unit. Typically, they would run a 12-hour window, right around the window of time where we saw the highest volume of calls for service.
In your projected budget, do you have more? One doesn't seem, for a city our size, doesn't seem adequate, but I just wanted to know what your expectations or plans were.
Well, the city manager's office, as well as the Office of Management Budget, have some folks who are working on looking at the big picture model. So as Mayor Giles has alluded, there is a big picture program in place.
So this kind of goes back to that, I just lost the name, that mental health network that we're tapping into. So they're also being a resource for us. But we'll pull all that together.
Thank you for your presentation. You know, I'm really appreciative of being, a former fire guy 10 years ago and seeing this evolve today, because many of you all know about maybe some of the difficulties it was in implementing this program, because boots on the ground have always had concerns for individuals when they responded to calls, whether they're B or ALS, and the frequent caller, as you say it. So having the CM unit having crews know that they can reach out to the social services site, because that's probably one of the weak points of our fire department. I mean, we're trained in advanced procedures and even BLS procedures, and the psychological issue sometimes is out of our threshold, but meeting those immediate needs and then having the follow-up in the social services with the CM unit is important. And just so the council, they have a playbook basically that allows them to integrate all the other agencies and come in, and the resources for an individual is just really all there. It's all inclusive. So these programs have evolved, and I appreciate not only the sworn staff, but also the civilian staff who work really hard at this. And sometimes their calls are very taxing. But I did see a gunshot wound ALS on there for them. What was that, Forrest?
Okay. Yeah, that's so.
Is that a follow-up or what?
Well, in most cases, what we find is you do have a patient of trauma, and a lot of times they're self-inflicted. But we also have patients who are left behind, which are family members. And so when you have an incident happen in a home, in a case like that, if in that particular case, talking to those folks, our team, that's as a result of working with family members to help them on some resiliency factors and follow-ups into how they can help manage the household as a result of something like that happening in the home.
Yeah, so again, that's all inclusive in the services we provide. So I like your wording on all hazard units, so to speak, as a department. So thank you.
Okay. Lastly, we have our COVID response. I appreciate the city manager's support and council support for us to be really engaged in the community with this. So and Mesa Public Schools has been a great partner for us as we've gone through every step of this. We started with COVID testing and flu shots. That started in September. We picked the highest COVID numbers in each zip code and went into the school district in those areas and gave flu shots and COVID tests. Very, very successful. The schools opened up for us to do that. We gave about 1,700 flu shots during that time, and we had just under 900 COVID tests. and that resulted in 10 positives. So that sounds small, but every positive person that doesn't know they're positive, the number of more positives, it just escalates. So that was a very successful program. We worked with Stewart Health on that one as well. So we appreciate the ability to having done that right in the neighborhoods. I think that had an impact. And then our vaccination pods. We've been doing them since January, and there's a few core people that have kept this really functional. Starting with Chief James Johnson, this is his area, Deputy Chief Michelle Denton, we had Captain Trez Dearvan in EM, Engineer Christy Dominguez, Administrative Assistant Christy Mendoza, Detective Rick Dow from PD has been involved in this, and Nadine Miller from Mesa Public Schools. That is the core of every one of these vaccine pods as we're doing them and expanding. We've been, I appreciate the city support in this because it takes a village to run a vaccine pod. We've had a ton of volunteers. I appreciate all the department directors who have given us volunteers. We've had volunteers coming regularly. Hilda Luna's been there regularly to help us with this. It's so important. The community is so grateful for us to be there. The Parks Department has been opening up. We've had the convention center opened up. They've been there to help us as well. So to date, we've done 35,000 vaccinations. We've given out 27,000 Moderna, just under 8,000 Janssen, although this week alone, they've given us 11,000 Janssen's to distribute. So it's a compliment. We've had a great partnership with the county and the state, and they've been working so well with us. But I appreciate the fact that they trust us, that when they give us the vaccine, we will put the vaccine in someone's arm. And so right now we're doing Wednesdays and Thursdays. Probably in the future weeks here, we'll be adding Tuesday, so we can get more vaccine out there every week. Yesterday alone, we gave 3,461 vaccine in one day. That's our record. So they have quite the efficiency out there in getting people through this at the Centennial Hall or the Convention Center. Also, in addition to that, we've been working, our team has been working with several other groups. This week they went to the homebound community. They got names and addresses of people that are homebound from Astor Aging, went directly to their homes and gave them the shots, the people that couldn't leave their homes. We're working with New Leaf. We've gone to churches to sign people up for the vaccination ahead of time because either they have no access to computers, things like that. So we've been doing that. We continue to do that, working with churches, neighborhoods. We're getting them there. Astor Aging is using Uber, Lyft, things like that to get them there. We also have worked with Mesa Public Schools if needed. We haven't had to use it to date, but if needed, if we have to bring a bus to a certain location and bus them to the convention center to get their vaccine, we will do that as well. But we're working with the community, several different groups in the community to see how we can reach every population that needs to get this vaccination that just can't log online, things like that on their own. So we're reaching out and doing that as well. So we'll continue to do that, and we've already had just a meeting with 3 different principals to see what we can do in their schools, in those neighborhoods as well. So we're trying to reach as many people as we can here. Currently, Mr. Brady just asked this question, how long we plan on going. I think having Dexcom here is really going to help because they're doing about over 3,000 shots a day as well. They're going till the end of June. We'll monitor that and work with Mr. Brady and see how long. But right now, that is like the date that Dexcom ends, and so we'll plan on that same time in case we might not need it to last that long, depending on how many vaccine are getting disseminated. So we'll continue to do that. But they're doing a great job. It's a great team, and people coming through are very, very grateful that the city is doing this for the community. So I appreciate you doing that.
And Mayor and Council, just because of Mary's great relationship with the state and the county, as you know, we were able to make available to all employees the opportunity to get their vaccine. And as of, what was it, a week or two weeks ago, we also started opening up to the dependents. And matter of fact, as a city, I think beginning where's John, next week? Next week, we'll actually have vaccines at our wellness center. So for our dependents and employees who've now decided maybe it's a good idea to get one, can sign up for an appointment to get shots. So we appreciate, Mary and her folks have been just absolutely, it's amazing. And what's the benefit of that is not only the community at large, but certainly City of Mesa employees have really benefited from that. And they're all bragging about which one of them got their shot from Mary. That's kind of like this new status symbol in the city, so.
Oh my gosh, let's crack up.
It makes us nervous.
I figure I had my medic cert for 30 years. I got to use it for something. I can't use it during a pandemic. When can I use it?
Well, thank you. That's a great presentation. I'm sorry, Mr. Freeman.
I'd just like to finish up, Mayor. You answered one of my questions about mobile house calls for either homebound or just people in general that don't, there's people out there that don't want to leave their homes, and I know of a couple of older people. So is there a chance for them to call in and get a service call?
You know, we can absolutely work with them. We got these names through Astor Aging, but if you know people that are homebound, we'll absolutely make sure they get taken care of.
Okay. Chief Johnson, have you pulled the ice machines out of the apparatus base? Okay. Corey, when does the Gilbert Training Facility come on board? Are we going to utilize that, or as a regional, or?
We are, yeah. They are open, they're fully functional now. They're running their first academy through, they started about 3 weeks. I think their first recruit academy is about 3 weeks in. They're in the process, and will be being recognized as a regional training facility as well. Because of all of the awesome things going on out at our training facility, as you can imagine, we can't really run our recruit academies without a locker room. So we will actually be using and partnering with Gilbert, who has partnered with us for, ever it feels like, for a long time. They've been sending their recruits through our academy. They have agreed to allow us to use their facility for our September 1st. I think it's August 28th or September 1st academy. So that academy that'll happen this fall, we will actually be using their facility. It's a beautiful facility. If you haven't had a chance to see it, it is very nice. It's not going to, mine's going to be ice too, though.
My last question is about cancer. So I applaud the department moving forward and making, you know, our engines clean and our apparatus bays and everything we can to control cancer, you know, amongst any of our public safety personnel. And, you know, I remember when I was a young firefighter, a fire chief coming into a house fire without any SCBA yelling at us. We had SCBAs on, and Chief Camilli may know who this is. I'm sure she does. And telling us how to fight the fire, and he's smoking a big cigar, yelling at us and telling us what to do, and I'm going, okay, I guess I'm going to keep my mask on, sir.
I'm trying not to do that, Mark. I'm trying not to do that.
I'm glad you quit.
Yeah.
She's got her nicotine patch. She's trying to slow down the cigars.
Anyway, thank you for keep taking care of the membership of fire, and this, you know, and this goes to other departments in our city. I mean, what you do has a ripple effect within other departments, how to keep all personnel in all of our departments clean and safe. So thanks.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Councilmember Spilsbury.
Your presentation was so well done that I don't have any questions, but I just wanted to say thank you so much. I've loved getting to see fire is everywhere. Everywhere you go, there's fire people doing something good, and so I just really appreciate that. I loved attending going to the training facility and seeing what is going on there and what the future looks like there, and it was really a neat thing to see what's being done there. So thank you for everyone and all of the great work you're doing.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Thank you. Mr. Thompson.
Yeah, and this is probably more for Chris, but once, and maybe John as well, but once the training facility is back up and fully operational, we really need to work with Post on getting us recognized as a regional training center, because there's additional funding that's available if we're recognized by Post. Well, it's mostly for PD on the PD side.
Okay.
Yeah,
But because we're not recognized as regional by Post, we're missing out on a huge piece of funding that's out there, additional funding to help offset some of our costs. And I'm sure that we could shift some of that funding over to the fire side as well. And then my final question is, what is your total ask? What are you asking for in the budget? Is that the 111 million that's on page 3?
Our expenditures?
It's mostly page 4, if that's what you're saying. Is that what you're asking? What's new?
Yeah, well, what is the total? What's the total amount being asked?
So,
Because I haven't seen it in here. So
yeah, okay, you want to.
I'm like, because usually our budget presentations are about,
The other way.
here's the cost, here's what we're asking for.
Everything on slide 4.
Right,
Plus.
so, Okay, so on 4, if we take slide 5 here, the position numbers, this comes to, when we're done with Station 22, that'll add up to about $8.4 million of personnel costs. And then we have an additional ongoing costs, like for training, for cancer screenings, equipment, and overtime. That's another about $1.5 million. That's ongoing right now. So that would take us to just about $10 million with the public safety tax.
Okay.
And some of the numbers we showed you before, some of those are general fund and some of them are public safety tax.
Okay.
Mr. Freeman.
I did forget one thing. Our transport units, is there a plan to implement more of them into the program forthcoming?
So that's what I think I was alluding to is, one, we talked about the transport unit trying to be somewhat cost recovering. We're not there yet because of the capital side. So one of the things we're looking at is maybe, again, here I am giving you something I don't know what we can do or not, but that may be part of the American Rescue Plan dollars that we could fund some of those. It's the vehicles that are the heavier cost.
Sure, I get the capital expense, but, if we're covering our operation and maintenance and then.
Yeah, but it's like any enterprise. If you pull it out, it's being subsidized by the general fund. So it is not self-sufficient. It's not like any other enterprise we say is covering its cost, because a lot of the cost is capital, and especially when you start up with having to buy, lots of vehicles at the beginning. So yeah, it covers some of the staffing because they're civilian transports, but it's not covering the cost of the program.
So I know that we have some contractual agreements with our current ambulance provider, and I know those have some timelines, and then we're gradually implementing our timeline for transport.
Yeah, well, I think the way to say it is, I think Chief Hayes is doing a great job of kind of creating this collaboration with the private sector and recognizing, I think they recognize there's places they can't serve well. And so we're, I think, strategically placing our transport units to kind of, in cooperation with them.
Right.
So that we kind of have this, hopefully getting to the best of both worlds of what they can do, what AMR can do, and then supplementing that, or I'm not sure if that's right, strategic placing your transport units to support that.
Yeah, so Councilmember Freeman, we're essentially running a hybrid model. And so we are currently responding with 12 Mesa units. We have 11 of those are peak time units, which cover the heavy volume portion of the day, which has been our model even when AMR or Southwest Ambulance were our sole providers. So we're covering those peak time volume times with our units. We have one 24-hour unit that we've placed out east, which is in that Eastmark area, Station 19. It will move over to Station 21 when that station opens. AMR is currently staffing 10 units in our system, and they are running the 24-hour coverage units. And we strategically place them across the system to make sure that we're meeting response times, where the call volume, high volume usage is for our transports, and then trying to make sure that we're managing the system seamlessly together. So it's gone very, very well.
So I guess just clarity for me, have we engaged all our transport units that we bought before, or are they all in service now?
They are, yeah.
Okay.
All 12 of our we had those 5 older units that we bought in 2009 or, yeah. That those are still in the system, as that we're using those as reserves, but they are, as you can imagine, 12-year-old ambulances are older ambulances. They are a reserve fleet, but the 12 frontline units that we've purchased in the last year and a half are all in the system and functioning very well.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Frankie, do you have anything to add? Are you good?
Yeah, no, on the transportation issue, is a couple of meetings ago, I think we talked about there's a vendor that's doing like the billing for this. I think it's Daisy Mountain. Is that still what we have, and is there a timeline to transition, or are we sticking with that vendor? If so, does that help with costs or hurt with costs?
So we are in the process of transitioning over. Our partners in Ed Queden's group is doing the billing. They've taken on that responsibility, so they've got the medical billers that are partnering with Daisy Mountain. We've been very, very lucky, and this really goes back to that automatic aid relationships. Daisy Mountain has been an exceptional partner for us for a very small fire district. We put a lot on them as they came on board to provide the billing services for us. They were also great partners in the fact that they've been willing to train our billers. So we hire medical billing professionals that have education and certifications, degrees in that program, but often they don't have pre-hospital medical billing experience. So Daisy Mountain is training, assisting us with training those billers. I think we've got 3 of them on board. We're in the process of hiring the 2 additional that should be on board soon, and we're expecting that in the next 6 months, we still have a current contract with Daisy Mountain to continue to assist us, but in the next 6 months, that will continue to roll back, and then Ed's group and their team will take on all of the billing. And we do expect that to be very successful, cost positive to the program, and the reimbursement rate that taking the billing in-house generates, we see as a significant positive for a savings.
Councilman Heredia, I think you recall what you're remembering is we added those positions back in January, I think.
Yes.
So that's probably where you remember us having that conversation. So that was the beginning of how we started transitioning it to bringing it in-house.
Okay. And then just a curious question on, I know one of the reasons on the transportation side we're moving more to provide in-house service is the quality of care that we can provide. Is that noticeable as far as the facilitation of services that we're able to provide in-house to our residents?
We are seeing some very big positives, and I certainly don't want that to sound like that our private partnership was not providing good care. The difference is when you use a large corporation, they buy in bulk, and they are a multinational company that buys their equipment based on their global contracts. They don't so much worry about what in their world is just the Mesa Fire Department, and they see that as kind of the small thing. So some of the things that we're seeing significant improvement on is transfer of care time, because we are using the same EPCRs, our electronic patient care reporting, the iPads that we use to do our documentation for our patients. That's seamless now. Let's pretend that John knew how to do any kind of patient care. I'm the captain paramedic on that call, and John becomes my transport. I'm going to call him an EMT because I'm not sure he really wants ALS responsibilities.
A JD, not an EMT.
Yeah. So I can walk up and essentially I just push the button and send my care report that I've been working on for the last maybe 15 minutes on this patient, and everything that I've done and have seen, John sees on his document immediately. That didn't happen with our private partners. They used a different system. The type of equipment that we carry, our heart monitors that you guys are all familiar with, because they cost us quite a bit. They come to you every several years. Those are the same. That's the seamless care when I go to transfer a patient from an ambulance to mine. The monitor's the same. We're familiar with that. Some of the other equipment that we carry, the private partners use some different equipment. The big piece that we're seeing huge positives is they sit in the fire station with them and they're training. They're going over codes. We've got some of our transport personnel are fairly young men and women coming into this career. To be an EMT, you only have to be 18 and graduate high school and have an EMT certification. So some of these can be very young men and women just starting in their career paths. And running that first code can be difficult. It's, I was 28 and it was difficult. So these guys getting to sit down and go through codes prior to ever having to run one with the crew that they are most likely going to be responding with. All of those things have been made for very seamless response and care. So yeah, it's been very, very positive.
Well, and it's helped with response.
Has.
I mean, that's really, Councilor, as you pointed out, I mean, AMR, I think Mesa is very big, and it's very different in, densities in different parts of the city. So we've been able to use the transport units to kind of be more strategic in partnership with AMR is obviously, we believe, assisting us with making sure we can respond in a timely manner. So over the top of everything, that's probably the most important factor at the end of the day is being able to be there and help transport, which then saves times for our crews that are there providing the first level of response. Then they don't have to wait for transport to show up. They have our folks, and we can make that transition, and then that crew can go back online, which is a big deal, right? We want them to be back I don't know, online's the right word, but
Code
ready to take
available.
calls,
Yep.
code available, so, thank you.
Yep, so that transfer of care is really what is critical in that, what Mr. Brady's describing. And the transfer of care is significantly improved using our own units.
In addition, our units are used only for 911 and not for any facility or not for any other current contracts that, AMR may have. It strictly stays in Mesa for 911. I mean, and our community partners too, if needed.
Good, I think,
And one last question, Mayor. Sorry.
yes, please. Go ahead, Frankie.
On the COVID data, you all mentioned great partnerships that we have, and the work that we've been doing has been great on the pods and the work with Mesa Public Schools. Do we have any data that we're working with the state and the county to identify even further pockets in our community that are having issues? I think across the state and across the country, I think we've seen people of color areas that have someone's hesitancy on taking the vaccine to fall off and get harder to get them vaccinated. So are we looking at how do we maximize some of the data that's coming out as far as where we can pinpoint further partnerships in the COVID vaccine effort?
Mayor, Councilmember Heredia, members of the council, that's a great question, and we are trying to reach out to many different populations. We have the faith-based community that we're reaching out to. We also have a group from the city that works for neighborhood services that's reaching out. So we're continuously reaching out to those groups as well. If there's any groups that are hesitant, we're trying to get some education out there to understand the vaccine, to be more comfortable with it and make a decision based on more information. So we are working with the county and we're getting information from them how to reach out. If anyone knows of any areas that you think need to be addressed, please bring it to our attention and we'll look into it. But we're trying to reach out to as many different groups as possible so they can have the opportunity to get this vaccine as well.
Thank you, Frankie. Let's go Vice Mayor Duff and then Mr. Thompson.
Going back to the transport units, thank you for bringing this back up. But I appreciate the quality of care. I can see that it's more seamless and a higher quality of care as well as we're improving our response times. So is the goal overall is to keep that partnership with AMR and then we do it for efficiencies? What our overall goal is. And the second part of that is, I would assume then, given our challenges, somehow AMR, we pay more or they're able to do it more efficient with their costs because of, you said, the global access to equipment and a lot of things they do. Is it more expensive for us to run our units?
In terms of expense, our rates are set by DHS.
Yeah.
So we bill, actually, I think that the Mesa rates happened at this point are a little bit lower than AMR's. But our rates are set by DHS, so we go through a whole process if we want to do a rate change.
Right.
But no, our citizens are not being billed, not one nickel more. That's set by the state, and it is the same, whether
So-
we transport or AMR.
Not so much the billing, but the
Vice
cost
Yeah,
to run
Vice
the
Mayor,
unit.
AMR, we, the city corporate Mesa, we don't pay for AMR. They recover all their fees through their billings. Their rates are set by the state.
Yes.
And, well, and I guess ours are too.
Yes,
So,
yeah, same as
so
ours.
all of the rates are set that way. So that's why the partnership works well. As long as AMR is providing their level of service that we expect and is in timely manner so that it, connects well with our first responders, that we can make that transition to AMR, then it works out great. And AMR then, again, they have to go through their certifications with the state, and the whole billing is handled directly between them and the patient. So that's why we would most likely continue to evaluate the partnership going forward, but I think it's turned into a positive. I mean, there are some cities who've decided either take it all on or go all in with AMR. So we're kind of the hybrid, I guess, of everybody.
Yep.
So I think, which is good, because we believe that model works best for our customers, that it keeps the taxpayers not having to pay for AMR because it just goes directly to the patients paying for it. And then otherwise, we are supplementing it, but we felt like we needed to because there were some challenges with AMR, as we kind of said, trying to meet the level of services, response times, and services that we expected our residents to receive. So we decided a hybrid kind of works best for us. Now, the good news is we've been working on the ability to transport for a long time, and we had to go to the state, and I don't want to relive any of that anymore. But anyway, we worked very hard to get the certificate to allow us to even do this. We can't just decide, we couldn't just wake up one day and say, hey, we're going to do this. We have to get certified through the state to even provide this service. So we've had that certification now 5 years, maybe more?
Yeah, about 6 years.
6 years?
Yep.
So now we're kind of in the mode where we're able to look at how that works efficiently with AMR. And so, yeah, we're a little different because we're a hybrid, but we build the same way, well, not the same way, we build similar to the way AMR would build a patient also, or access, which is probably a lot of the time where we're hitting that. I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, I think it really helps. But one additional question on that. We contract with AMR, so the terms of the contract are just for service. I would just understand what.
Yeah, it's more of a performance level,
Yeah,
right?
it's a performance contract. So, and we've been in a contract with AMR, and then prior to AMR buying out, it was with Southwest Ambulance, Rural Metro Southwest is who AMR bought to buy our contract. So we worked through a contract, and we actually have a contract that we have just recently, we are in an extension to their previous contract that Mr. Combe negotiated with Chief Camelli 6 years ago. So we've extended that contract for 6 months while we are finalizing what we've proposed as our next 1 year contract that has the ability to be continued. And it gives us the flexibility that Mr. Brady referred to basically evaluate as we go and decide what we want to do with this hybrid.
So the contract is negotiated on levels of service and not necessarily, not a monetary.
No.
Yes.
Okay.
I don't know what we'd compare it to, but they seek, we open it up and
Well, and how
people
many,
can-
there's not, I
there's
don't know.
only two that hold.
Two, and the whole state is certified to do this, so there's not a lot of choices. It's kind of, either we're gonna do it all ourselves, or we're gonna
Yep.
do a hybrid, or have AMR do 100%.
And I think when we did this contract, there was only one.
Yes.
Yeah,
It was just
I think
something-
so.
Yeah,
At the
the second one wasn't even available at that time when we,
And AMR was a good partner in helping us reach, I think it was Southwest at the time. They actually helped us get our C of N. We're one of the few cities in the East Valley, I think the only city in the East Valley that has a complete C of N. So we can do all forms of transport, and 6 years ago, we started planning for this eventuality that we would have a hybrid system by the time we came back to you about now. And we fully expect over the next 2 or 3 years to continue to work AMR to see where that hybrid works. With the ultimate goal not even being cost, as much as I know that makes OMB behind me cringe, but it's that level of service, because no people have been more of a champion of us taking this over than our own firefighters, who see the difference level of service in patient care and how it makes their life not only better, but more efficient, and that's been a huge difference. I mean, I've gone out and actually sat in the stations and heard how they really appreciate the fact that we have our own transport. So we will continue to work with AMR, who's been a willing partner as we go through this, to make sure we find that correct balance in how we provide the service to our people, to our citizens, because in the end, we've got to make sure that when they call 911, not only do we have fire response and police response, but that they have a transport model that is there in a time, and we don't have a zero ambulance kind of availability situation, which I'm trying to say so that Councilmember Freeman doesn't jump in and remind me of that, which is his favorite thing to do on any given day.
Would you just say what a CON is for some of the council members, because that's an acronym that you're...
A C of N is a certificate of necessity. To operate transport services within our geographic area, you have to have a C of N. And when we went to this last contract, only Southwest AMR had that C of N. So if a city doesn't have it, you don't have other options. It's only the people who have that regionally. The companies themselves will often combat each other to see who can get exclusive rights in an area. So there are times when there were, I want to say 6, 8 years ago, Southwest had financial problems. And we were afraid, what happens if they go out? And that really, I want to say 8, 9 years ago was the first time Chief Camelli and I started talking about, okay, what are we going to do if they can't provide the service? Because, you know, back then we even had in our contracts that we could take their ambulances if they failed to provide the service. So this has been a long time coming, and that certificate of necessity is something that we were amazingly fortunate to get 6 years ago, and we've been waiting for this time to kind of now branch into the service so that we can do a hybrid that we believe is a better mode of service.
I would add one thing to that. When you're speaking of it, Vice Mayor Duff, when you sit down to negotiate a contract with the sole provider, it's difficult. So they certainly carry a lot more strength in that negotiation process, which is one of the things when we talk about, well, you have the ability to negotiate a contract and get what you need out of that contract. But it was I didn't do that. Chief Camelli and Mr. Pombier did, but I was part of it because I was over the dispatch center, and I think it was, there were rough negotiations at that time to try to get the best we could for the city.
And to go a step further, it's allowed us, when we talk about expansion of the system, to compare what our costs are throughout the entire system, cost of providing service, cost of billing, all that stuff, to private organizations to see what is the best option for the city as an employer and as a provider and for the citizens. So we will continue to walk through that entire business kind of preparation to make sure we're competitive. So it allows us to be competitive with them. It gives us some leverage in any types of negotiations. And it really, the end benefit is for the citizens who get a level of service, as you saw with that recent fire. And I've actually talked to the chief about the next time we have a major fire like that, picking some of you up to see it. Because if you see it live, it is one of the most impressive things you're ever going to see. The coordination between police and fire was amazing.
I wanted to so go through the police cars and the tape, but they were saying, stay home, stay in your house. But next time.
Next time, text me and I'll come get you.
I hope there isn't a next time. I hope there isn't a next time. But thank you very much for the explanation and the excellent innovation and service that you provide to our residents. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Thompson.
Yeah, I remember those conversations with Chief Beck back in the day, and all the CAD pages we used to get when Southwest couldn't meet our expectations, and their ambulances were out of service, and we're all like, what does this mean? You know,
Altered protocol, yes.
Yeah, the protocol.
You're making me twitch. Stop.
I know, right? I think it made us all twitch, which is, you know, I mean, I've been a huge proponent of the transport since the discussions first started. Chris, my question on the transports, is there an ability to utilize the gaming pack dollars to offset our capital expenses?
What dollars?
The gaming pack, the SRP.
From the, I mean, we could apply for it, certainly. I know we're already there, you know, we're already applying for a lot of dollars for other programs, so certainly. That's why I'm suggesting maybe that's something we could look at if it's available under the rescue plans, because it's that capital infusion that makes it difficult. You know, AMR somehow figures out how to stay in business, and they pay for all their capital and their personnel and their billing, and probably because of volume, probably because they get things a little bit cheaper. So that's just so when we say transport does not pay for itself, we're subsidizing it. But the thought is if we could infuse that with the capital, that would certainly help our numbers and reduce the subsidy.
And that's what I was thinking, is if there's ability to get some of those funds.
So I think to your point is, I would agree, we're gonna look at all the options where if we can find available funds outside of the city's general fund to pay for the capital, that's what we'll look at.
Okay, awesome, thank you.
All right, thank you. Well, again, there's been no one in our city more put upon or asked to do more during COVID than our public safety, and we just want to express our appreciation for the great way you've responded. This next and ongoing challenge of vaccine delivery, I think is going to be with us for months to come. Correct. So I just want to personally underscore what Mr. Heredia said a moment ago. I think at some point, when we see vaccines being dispersed in family practice offices and drugstores, I think it'll be even more incumbent on us to be proactive and be going out and identifying those communities and those individuals that for whatever reason are falling through the cracks. So I know you're doing that, but I would just encourage us to kind of see that as maybe our mission here as part of public safety. So I'll look forward to hearing more about that as this story unfolds. But thanks again for your great efforts.
Great. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
You bet. Next item on our agenda, council, is to acknowledge receipt of minutes from the Housing and Community Development Advisory Board. Thank you, Vice Mayor, for making that motion. Mr. Luna, thank you for the second. Mr. Smith, you think we can go with a voice vote now, or do we need to continue this tradition of roll call votes?
Why don't we go back to treating it like it was telephone, and we'll go to voice vote. And
Okay.
if you have multiple people on Zoom, you might have to do a mini roll call
Yes.
just for those people, but why don't we go back to voice vote?
I'll make special note of how Mr. Heredia votes here, so. All in favor of that motion, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Any opposed? All right, that passes unanimously. Next item on our agenda is the current event summary. Council, I know you've been busy. Mr. Luna?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. On Monday, I recorded the reading of Dr. Seuss, the Lorax for 2021 Arbor Day recognition. I know some of my council members, as you, Mayor, were part of that reading, so I want to thank Channel 11 and Environmental Management and Sustainability for facilitating this. This is going to be shown to third grade classes at MPS. On Tuesday the 6th, I chaired the MAG Economic Development Committee meeting. We discussed the Black Chamber of Arizona, continued effort to spotlight minority chambers with an eye on diversity, equity, and inclusion. We also heard a presentation concerning development of new regional transportation plan. Audra Thomas from MAG presented us with the results of a survey of likely voters in the Maricopa County on regional transportation priorities. Not only do many of the voters indicate support for the investment in transportation improvement, but 70% said they would be supporting the tax increase to fund improvements. Voters understand the improvements to any of these regional transportation systems improves the whole system, which benefits everyone, and are motivated by the greater good, and acknowledge regional transportation investments, which is going to be very important for this community. Yesterday, I took a tour of Urbex Incorporated Mineral Facility, and Urbex is I guess a good story in terms of the launch point. They started at Launch Point, and now they're over in Northeast Mesa. Nico Cuevas is the CEO, and they're leading a revolution on graphite technology, which is part of making the electric batteries that are a sustainable power system that we know they're on the rise. They talked about several car companies that are very interested in their batteries, so they're looking at expanding. So I'm very excited to hear that they're going to be doing that. And they were able to beat competitors in China in both efficiency and cost. And so I'm looking forward to their expansion. And then last night, I attended the Maricopa Community College System's virtual Heroes of Education event, recognizing many leaders in community. And one of our recipients was former employee of Mesa, Wayne Ballmer. So I think he's got like 10 associates.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so.
Right, all the time, yeah.
So, it's nice that after retiring from the city of Mesa, he decided to continue his education and going through the MCC systems and earning as many degrees as possible. So, so we want to congratulate all the recipients. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Council, other comments, Vice Mayor?
Yeah, so I'll add on to that. I also listened on the Heroes of Education, and Wayne Ballmer is very generous to Mesa Community College in particular. But I also wanted to recognize that David Adami of CPLC was recognized for his contributions and a commitment to education, and he is a hero of education. On Monday, I also read a book for the Mesa Public Schools. I read Dr. Seuss's The Lorax. It's a great story. I'm glad to share that with the kids for Arbor Day. And we must protect our truffula trees. We must grow and protect our trees for our health and environment. On Tuesday, I did a tour of the ASU building while it's in their construction. It's very high-tech in its construction to house the high-tech capabilities and equipment. It's quite impressive. All kinds of creative works will happen there, and it's amazing the infrastructure that has to be in place in order to have the augmented reality and the filming and the gaming and so many other cool things. So we want to be one of the 5 schools in the world that offers these type of, ASU will be one of the 5 schools in the world that offers this type of education. We also viewed the area for the City Center Plaza, a park area. And there's going to be a central area for seating or events, and I'll have the shade sails over it, much like the Mesa Arts Center. It'll flow nicely to that. I think that's about it. Thank you.
I was hoping you'd mention your trip to the Foster 360 program.
I was going to. I don't want to leave.
Okay.
You want to talk about
I'll
that?
mention it if you want me to, sure.
Thank you.
Well, on that topic, Mesa United Way, I think we all know, is tried to get really engaged in supporting foster care with Helen's Hope Chest and Foster 360. And so there's a model that they have been working on for housing aged out foster children. And Vice Mayor and I had the privilege of seeing a housing unit, 7 units that they are operating as a model to explore how to have a bigger impact on that tremendous need in our community. And I was very impressed and look forward to, I know several city staff were with us, and I think we'll look forward to trying to explore ways that we can be more supportive of that. So thank you for allowing me to accompany you on that, Vice Mayor. Council, other comments? Okay. All right, well, thank you, Mr. Brady. What does our schedule look like?
Thank you, Mayor. We'll meet again next Thursday, April 15th at 7:30. We'll review some discussions on capital financing and have budget presentations from our utilities departments. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Council. If there's nothing else, is there a motion to adjourn this meeting? Thank you, Mr. Luna and Ms. Pillsbury, for that motion. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned.